So I thought I'd do something cute this time while the other video essentially that I created is transcoding. This is just a little thing. So if you ever wanted to quote all, I'm sure there's plenty of enterprise like ways of doing this. This involves spending a lot of money or using a different software product. But built into Linux, all right, you have a way that you can quote off space, essentially, and make sure it's never going by, you know, like never surpassed. Hold on a second. A little clunky with the shell. Okay, so let's say, for example, I have this user Bob, and I want to give him a home directory that he can access, and I want to make sure essentially that he can't access or write to any location except his home directory. And I want to make sure he doesn't go over, say, 50 megabytes. Okay? So first I initialize block file, like so. I use dev0, which, if you ever look much at Linux device drivers, there are a couple special ones. A couple special ones apparently, which don't do anything anymore. Fucking bastard. You fucking piece of shit, making me look like an idiot. Anyway, so Bob, motherfucker. Let's see whether or not I'm gonna get a. Okay, hold on a second. Yeah, that's what I figured. Okay, so go ahead. I'm just gonna go into a freaking super use shoes or so. All right. Okay, now. So, let's say I want Bob, when he logs in, to have an image file, essentially, created that, like, contains all his files. It's real easy to move around and simultaneously make sure, essentially, that he doesn't use too much space. So maybe I say I want to make it block size of 1 megabyte, or I want to make it 50 megabyte size. So here's my command. First, I'll do a dump command. All right. Use input of dev/0, which will just spit out null characters to me. Okay. Output file will bob.image. Like Bob. Bob's a fun name. Bob is always a fun name. Anyway, and block size of 1, and I'll count out 50 megabytes, alright? And as you can see, it did what it needed to do. There's the file. Right now, Bob is going to be very empty. And for some reason, yeah, I think it is null characters. Hex edit file. I'll never actually put that down there. Nope, I didn't put an hex edit file in place, an hex editor in place. Well, that's a shame. Anyway, I should get one of those. Point is, well, now you have this empty file, and there's different ways that you can connect it to the operating system. The simplest way is going to use a root device eventually. It's a question whether it's going to use a root device that takes partitions or just essentially just represents one partition. In this particular case, it's just going to be one partition. Now, everything is a file in Linux. So you can point most things that will work with block devices, for example, at files, because it's doing essentially the same thing. It's reading and writing. That's all it's doing, and maybe doing a little bit of polling in the cases, but it won't be doing that for the standard the standard read-write like system. It's going to be doing that with special calls and the like that use the encapsulating protocol like ATA, for example, to do that. So. Well, when it comes to the VFS, virtual file system on Linux, essentially you can mount in practically everything. I've even been able to mount VMDKs, into the operating system, which you can do. It's just incredibly slow for some reason. This is not so slow. This actually runs at just about the native speed, honestly. And I have tested that at one particular point. But first thing you have to do is you have to make fs bob.image. Make the type of, say, ext4, and there it is. All right. Now, if you do a freaking fdisk, or I forget how the hell you do this. well, I'm going to mount the thing, so it doesn't matter. Okay, now you can go ahead and you can mount, I'm going to make a Bob mount point. Now you can go ahead and mount Bob.image to Bob. And LS block. You can see it automatically assigns a loopback device to a loop device to mount. Now, a loop device is a special kind of device. It points at things, at all kinds of image files. Sometimes I think you might even be able to point it at other kinds of devices and the like as well. But all it does is sit there as an intermediary between a file and the Linux kernel. And I think at the very least, in most cases, in almost all cases, because I've never seen it used for anything else personally, it just basically creates a virtual layer between a disk and a disk or an image of some form and a read-write block device, or read-only, depending on what options you specify. You can go further. I mean, you can actually create an entire disk file, essentially, with multiple partitions and a partition table and everything in it inside a file, and actually mount it with LO-setup-P, and it'll allow you to basically sit there and pick and choose. Once you attach a loop device to it, it'll show a whole bunch of child loop devices. But yeah, at this particular point, we got our disk image, we got our mount point. If I go into Bob, for example, and I touch 1.txt, for example, and I go here, and I cat Bob.image. Now there's going to be some stuff in there, obviously, you know. Anyway, a whole bunch of stuff, apparently. Holy crap. That was just from creating one fucking file. That's amazing. Anyway, in a file system. That's a lot of data for just a file system. You know, with nothing in it, pretty much. Okay, so I go into Bob. Now what I can do is I can use add user Bob. Okay, and I can go to sudo -u Bob -u L. Is it just Bob? I think it's just Bob. Okay, now I'm in Bob. Alright. For example, just to test that the user is there. And where is his? Does he have his own directory? He does. He has Bob. So Bob. And there's nothing in it, of course. Okay. Now, still unroot at this particular point. Now I need to go to etc and Joe profile. It's password actually. Yes, it is. Okay, so go down to the very bottom, and there's Bob. There is Bob. Okay, so you can see where his home directory is and all this. I could change it if I wanted to. I don't think I'm gonna. What I'm gonna do is instead, I'm gonna go into the Mount tab. It's gonna be FS tab or Mount or MT tab. This is accessible by reference after running this file. The updates and units generated from this file. Oh, okay, cool. So this is one. So I always get the mixed up in tab in that one. Okay, so I'm going to go mnt/bob.image. I'm going to mount it to home/bob. I'm going to specify what type of system it is. And I'm going to leave the rest of these at defaults, basically. Defaults RW and 0 by 0. And now I'm going to try to mount /mnt/bob that image. Now there's going to initially be some file complaints here. Alright, we'll tell it so. Sorry about that. Let's also look at that too. There's home Bob. As you can see. LS.cd/mt /bob. As you can see, the ownership is going to need to be changed. I'm going to to try try a few other things too. But first, I'm going to change this ownership to Bob. So I'm going to go Chown, -R, Bob, and star. That's the first, and that should include the current directory as well. But we'll just do that explicitly. I'm going to change. I'm going to go ahead and say plus user right. Bob star, and I'm going to do -R. Oops, wrong direction. User plus R plus W. Oops, don't do that frequently. KSL. Okay, and G minus R minus W. Yep. See, all those have been updated. You can read from any of the groups, standard groups. No sticky bit or anything like that on at this particular point. And that is interesting. Chown not work. Anyway, so now I'm going to try to log in as Bob. There I'm Bob. And as you can see, I'm inside that directory now. So that's Bob. Let's see if I can write something. Touch 2.txt. Yes. Now, here's the one problem. The one problem is essentially that when I do this, you mount /tab/ Bob. You mean this piece of code. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to mount Bob.image to /mnt/Bob. It's already mounted, goddammit. Oh, it's already mounted. Okay. That's fine. To mount /Bob. Bob image to mount /Bob. Okay. Now copy RB star /home/Bob /start. Start. Why would you do this? Well, cp Bob, in the wrong fucking directory. Copy -RD /home/Bob /start. This directory. There we are. That's what I was looking for. Okay. Yes. Okay. Wow. But I might need to make Bob a little bigger. Yeah. Point is, why am I doing this? I had no idea it would take up that much freaking space. I mean, I just literally created the crap. Why in God's name was it going for that? Boy. God damn it, boy. That's what it is. Oh, cd/home/Bob. Move -R. I said Bob, god damn it. Okay, and Mozilla. Bob. Alright, very good. So, now I'm gonna new mount. Search mount slash Bob. And then a mount slash home slash Bob. Check to make sure he's mounted. It is. Now I might have to specify some auto mount option essential for the NFS tab if I didn't already. We'll go back to that later. But as you can see, it is pretty much working because I'm sitting there and I'm able to reference it by different parts and the device name explicitly. Alright, now I'm going to sudo to Bob. I said su into Bob, sorry. Su into Bob, ms period star. And as you can see, all that crap essentially is there. Isn't that wonderful? Yes, yes it is, John. It really is. ls star dot start. That is pretty started. I wish I didn't have to freaking say, oh, I don't want dot in there, or dot, I just want these two. Wouldn't that make more sense? And the profiles as well in bash RC. Because as you can see, previously when I logged in, this was missing. This is going to be in the bash RC or bash profile, one of those two essentially. So you have to copy into your initial things. But at this particular point, I have succeeded. Now Bob can't go anywhere else. He can't say, for example, go to this directory and touch one. Oh, permission denied. Go to home slash my, and you can't go into that at all actually. You can go to home slash John. Can't go there at all. Can't go to slash root. Can't do that at all. But he can go to his own directory, and he can ddif equals dev slash 0of equals slash test.txt ds equals 10 you can go ahead and you can write as much crap as he freaking wants in his own directory. And if you look at disk read, home slash Bob, use 27%. So, why do this, you might ask? Well, it's modular. It's going to set aside, physically reserve the amount of space he needs. And if I ever need to shrink it down, all I got to do is go out of that. Now I'm going to have to add another freaking window controller. Hold on a second. Let's go out of that, unmount, slash home slash Bob. Alright. And then open up. Go into cd slash mt in this case. gparted bob.img. Open that shit up. You can do this in the command line too of GPT. I never use GPT, the parted command. I only use gparted. I like the GUI. The GUI's nice. It's pretty. It lets me see what I want to see. See, hold on a second. As you can see, here it is. Alright, resize. I can't do this because it's not part of a partition table at this particular point. That's cute. Okay. But if I did just make a disk, so on and so forth, and make it as a different disk device, I'd be able to. At this particular point now, I am kind of wondering, I think you can do a shrink, hold on a second. You can do a shrink from the command line. fs. Resize 2fs. Okay. So I think be, we'll say 20 megabytes. Okay, so that do it. Session. No, it did not. God damn it. Is now 5120 1K box on is now 32-bit. Ooh, much resize that best in this case. Well, now I'm fucking around. But trust me, all right. If you create it with a partition table, like you can do this, and there's gonna be a way you can do it with this too. And resize to that. So it looks pretty straightforward. So it should be, shrink the file system to minimize the size as much as possible in the file storage. Oh, let's try that actually. Just see what that does. What the hell? Is now 27,507, 25,730. So you can apparently just do that. And now we're going to mount /home/Bob. And then I'm going to ls block. And there it is. And I'm going to disk free. And there it is. So dropped it down to whole 20 freaking like megabytes, because I'm guessing the file system itself requires a certain amount of overhead to work properly. So this is a neat little trick. I hope you enjoyed what I showed you here, because it is pretty simple, and it works directly off of the base system in Linux, so you don't need to use anything fancy to accomplish it. You can make scripts to manage it if you like, or whatever, or a program to manage it if you like, but it's a simple enough trick, and it does work. I've actually been able to share these out on SMB directories as well, and works with everything essentially that Linux works with, read and write. It's pretty awesome, man.